If you're watching this right now, it's likely that you're working through a new resume and maybe you don't know where to start. And maybe you're wondering, should I consider hiring a professional resume writer to help me get a winning resume to get noticed by recruiters and land that dream job? Well, you've come to the right place, because as a professional resume writer myself, I'm here to tell you, do not hire a professional resume writer. Wait a minute, what? You're a resume writer and you just told me not to hire you? Yep, you heard that right. Stick around and I will tell you why. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to talk to you about why you shouldn't hire a resume writer when you're writing a new resume. Now, I'm a corporate recruiter with over 20 years of experience, and I've hired thousands of people into some of the world's most well-known and well-respected companies. So I know a thing or two about hiring. I'm also a professional resume writer, and I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com. So if you're interested in these types of videos directly from a recruiter that teach you how to land your dream job, make sure you hit the subscribe button. All right, so let's talk about resumes and resume writing services. So again, chances are, if you found your way to this video, you're probably considering a resume writer and wondering if it's worth the cost. Now, as I said in the intro, in most cases, I'm not going to recommend that you look at a resume writer as your first option. And there's a lot of reasons why. So I wanted to discuss some of them with you here in just a second. But before we get into that, let's talk about the resume and why it's so important. So from a recruiter's perspective, in most cases, job seekers are either found in two buckets. There's either the passive job seeker, where I'm actually going out and recruiting you, or there is the active job seeker. Most people fall under the active seeking, so you're actually going out and applying for positions that I post. So in an active job seeker's case, the resume becomes a crucially important tool, because in a lot of cases, that's the first and maybe only impression that I get from you. So when you send off an application to me or a resume to me and you don't match what I'm looking for, you're going to end up in the no pile. And here's the thing. Major corporations are getting anywhere from 100 to over 1,000 applications per role. So you're stacked up against some fierce competition. So if your resume isn't optimized, you have almost no chance of getting noticed by that recruiter and moving on to the first round interview. And if I do see you, I'm only giving you a 5-second glance. So you have to make sure that everything is in its place and you know exactly what you're doing when you submit that resume. Otherwise, you're going to end up in the no pile for me. So that's why your resume is so critically important. So the fact that you're even recognizing that you need help is a good thing. But is using a professional resume writer the right idea? Let's talk about why you might want to consider going a different route. So there's really a few major reasons why I feel that using a resume writer is not necessarily the best way to go. The first major reason is when we are looking at a submission for a position, I always coach my clients on the importance of customizing to the particular role. And so if you're just sending off a generic resume to each position that you're interested in, your chances of getting noticed are very slim, because the most well-honed resume is going to get you as close to what the recruiter is looking for, and that's the ultimate goal, because you only have that 5 second. You only get 5 seconds, and if I don't see you in that first 5 seconds in matching a reasonable match to my position, you're going to end up in the no pile. So sending off that generic resume, the chances of it matching what I'm looking for in that first 5-second glance are almost non-existent. Not to mention, you also have an ATS system that you need to get past. And so if you're sending off a generic resume, chances are you are not optimized to for what my ATS system is going to be filtering out. Customized resumes are really the only option for you. You have to be doing customization. If you're not doing it, you're going to be left behind, because the other people who are getting hired are doing it. So it's really important that you have a customized resume for each individual job submission. Now, I know that sounds like it could be a mountain to climb, like, man, I got to put together a custom resume for each role that I'm interested in. And honestly, the answer is yeah, you actually kind of do. If you really want to stand out from the crowd, and again, you're up against fierce competition, especially as I record this. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's one of the most difficult job searching environments that I've ever experienced. You really do need to have any advantage that you can in order to stand out from the crowd. So when you hire a professional resume writer, you might get a really nice document, but it's going to be generic. It's not going to be customized to the position, especially if you have a dream job that pops up. I mean, your resume is going to be written kind of generically, and if that dream job kind of is really looking for something specific, you better make sure that you match what the recruiter is looking for. So if you're sending off resume after resume that's just kind of a generic one, that's maybe it's a nicely formatted resume from a professional service, the chances of you actually matching the requirements of the position are very slim. And let's face it, Most people do not have a budget to send off a resume to a resume writer for each job submission. I mean, you're looking at anywhere from $200 plus for a customization. And let's face it, if you're on unemployment or looking, aggressively looking for a position, do you have that kind of money? If you got that kind of money, by all means, that's probably the best way to go. But for most of us, that's not going to be a viable option. So number one, you need to have a customized resume, and a resume writer is just not going to get you there. They're going to give you a nice generic document, but they're not going to get you a customized resume per the role, unless you hire them specifically for a job. Actually, I've had clients do that where they contacted me saying, this is the job that I want, write me a resume that matches this one, and we actually got them the job. But in general, I wouldn't recommend doing that. The second one is resume writers are usually professional writers. And you might think like, wait a minute, that's a good thing, right? You're hiring somebody that's a professional writer that knows exactly what they're writing. Maybe has some certifications that say that they're really good at writing. And in even some cases, resume writing certificates. So why is that not a good thing? So when you look at professional resume writers, they are going to write you a very eloquent looking resume. They're going to use verbiage that's beyond my vocabulary. That's going to be really eloquently and perfectly written, and it's going to be impressive in that regard. But here's the thing: I'm looking to fill a particular seat. I'm not looking to fill to get your resume and put it into a Pulitzer Prize winning panel that's going to judge how eloquent your resume is. It's really going to needs to be matched to the position that I'm recruiting for. So a really eloquent resume is not going to help you. The second thing is a vast majority of the professional resume writers out there. Now, I'm not going to say that there are not good ones out there, because I have seen some good ones, but the vast majority of the resume writers out there are people that have never hired somebody a day in their life. And really, when I go in and when I sit down with my hiring managers, I'm sitting there as a recruiter, sitting across the desk from them, asking them, what exactly do you need to see in a candidate in order to seriously consider them? And then I create a job profile, an ideal candidate profile, and then I go out and recruit against that. If you don't know what those things are that hiring managers are looking for, you're really just kind of throwing a dart at a wall and hoping that you hit a target. Whereas, in other words, a professional resume writer who's never hired somebody before really has no clue what a hiring manager is looking for, and that's not going to help you. A really nicely worded resume is not going to get you past me, so you're not even going to get to see a hiring manager. So if you are getting your resume from a professional writer, the chances of it being effective, it's not to say that you can't get an effective one there. So if I have any of my resume writing friends who are watching this, this is not a slight against your skill. It's just really the reality is that resume writers are looking for two different things. We are looking for something very specific. Not to mention, we also have an ATS system, and if you have never used an ATS system, a lot of people are saying, well, we write for the ATS system, and I see a lot of misconceptions about ATS systems. That's kind of going to be for another video, but we really are looking for how do we get past the ATS system in a way that is going to get you the best chance of getting noticed by me. And the ATS system is not some evil monster that just chews up resumes and spits them out. There's actually some purpose behind it. More on that in another video, though. So the third major reason is, and I say this with love too, there are some really bad professional resumes out there. I've seen some candidates or people who put resumes out on LinkedIn, for example. They'll throw a resume up and I'll see it and I'll go, oh, you should. I would not put that out there if I was you. I've actually reached out to a few of them and just said like, hey, I don't know if this is gonna help you or not, but if you want to maybe take a look at this video, and I send a video that I made about it out to give them an idea of some of the kind of don'ts on resumes, and they'll say, oh no, this is from a professional resume, I just got this and I'm going to see how it works out and kind of let it ride for a little bit. And I'll think like, wow, that was a professional resume, just full of errors, full of things that are just absolutely do not do's. I'll leave a link if you're interested in checking out what you shouldn't do on a resume, but some of the professional resumes, they're downright shameful, that they were written, somebody actually took their money, and then this person is not going to, I can guarantee you, they're not going to have any luck with the resume that was written for them professionally. Again, it's not to say that all resume writers are bad, because I actually seen some really good ones from some from some professional resume writers. So it's not to say that you should avoid them altogether, but a lot of them they really have no clue what they're doing. They don't know what it's like to recruit somebody because they've never recruited anybody before, and they don't know how ATS is. And they'll say, well, this is optimized for we're going to optimize you for ATS, but have they ever actually used an ATS system before? And that's something to actually ask your resume writer. What ATS systems have you actually used? Because you can sit there and say, oh, I optimized to an ATS system, because they're all going to say that because it's kind of a buzzword, but have they actually ever used an ATS system before? And if they have, which ones have they used? And, actually kind of do a deep dive on that. It would be worth seeing what experience they actually have had. Did they move people through the requisition process? Did they filter down inside of an ATS system before? Did they do a Boolean search inside of an ATS system to find a targeted candidate? Those are all things that I would ask, because if they have never done those things, then how can they optimize you for something that they've never used before? The next major thing is, listen, professional resume writing is expensive. And from my own perspective, when I sit down and I go through a resume writing process, when I actually write somebody's resume, and again, I will write your resume for you. I'm not saying I won't. And there are some cases where I will suggest that if somebody is really struggling and doesn't know where to start, and even with some guidance, kind of just doesn't know how to do it, it's maybe a good idea to start with a baseline and then kind of learn from there. Start with a baseline resume from a resume writer, and then learn to build on top of it. But in general, professional resume writing services are expensive, and I think I've seen anywhere from $200 all the way up to, $2,000 for resumes. I mean, go and do your own searches and see what quotes you get. You'll see the kind of the wide range, and my service actually comes in at the low end of that spectrum, but I still think it's a huge investment for somebody. And when you look at you're only getting a generic resume out of it, you're still not getting a customized resume. You're still going to need to go, and kind of to that first bullet point, you still need to, are you going to hire somebody each time you need to write a new resume or submit for a new job? I'm of the mindset of it's better to teach somebody how to fish than to do the fishing for them, because they're never going to learn. And this is a life skill that you should have. You spend so much of your time. I mean, if you look at the amount of time that you work in your life, it actually comes out to, I think it's like 35% of your waking life. And that's not your adult life, that's your entire life. That includes childhood, that includes retirement, that includes the time that you're sleeping. 35% of your entire life is spent working. The amount of people who actually develop the skill to create a resume that actually helps you propel your career forward, gets you the higher pay rates, gets you into position for better caliber companies, I call them pedigree companies that everybody recognizes and that look really good on resumes. Let's face it, a big company looks better on your resume than some company that nobody's ever heard of before. Having that better quality resume is going to position you to get qualified or get into those pedigree companies that's going to help propel your career forward. But almost nobody invests in that skill, developing that skill. So I know that as a professional resume writer myself, people are like, why are you making a video about don't use your service? And in most cases, I don't think you should use my service. And I think that you should learn how to develop that skill, because it is something you're going to use throughout the rest of your career. And this skill will directly impact the amount of money that you earn in your career directly. So learn how to write learn how to write your own resume. I think that that's going to give you the best bang for your buck. If you don't know how to write your own resume, I mean, I do have some videos. So just there's a handful. I think there's actually a playlist for that. I also offer it's called Resume Rocketfuel, and it's really designed. It's a course. It's a self-directed course, and it's designed to get people a full spectrum of how to write a resume that is going to get noticed by recruiters. Now, this is from a recruiter, and I'm telling you exactly what I'm looking for. I'm teaching you exactly how to write a resume, from blank document on your screen to submitting your resume and having the best chance of somebody like me noticing you and getting you through the interviewing process. Because ultimately, your resume is just designed to get you your foot in the door for the first interview, and the rest of it's kind of up to you to sell yourself. So Resume Rocketfuel is something that does that. It actually goes cradle to grave. We talk about all the common mistakes that I see people making, what my feelings are on templates. I actually provide you with a template that is ATS and recruiter approved, so that you can start with, and then you follow along as we write my resume, and I actually show you step by step and the thought processes behind, and I give you all the best practices. We address how to deal with ageism and other employment gaps and other problem areas that you might find on your resume. So this is, again, all directly from a recruiter, and I'm teaching you how, if I was to go and sit down and write your resume for you, this is all the stuff that I would do. This is the stuff that I'm doing in the background. So I'm teaching you my process, and I'm teaching you it from a recruiter's perspective. So something to think about. I will leave a link for that. There are some free resources on my page too. Make sure you check them out. But it's really important for you to learn how to write your own resume. And that's kind of the moral of the story. And I think learn how to fish, because this is such a critical skill in your career, and you're going to use it throughout the rest of your career. So I've got a website. Make sure you check out lifeafterlayoff.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, because I've got a ton more videos coming out teaching you the ins and outs of the recruiting process directly from a recruiter's mouth. And then give me a like, because that actually helps other people find my channel. It helps me continue to put out this kind of content. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one.